Good morning. My name is Gabriella McColeman with the McColeman team at Riverview Mortgage. I am a mortgage loan officer, but also a certified divorce lending professional. And I am so excited to be here with Conversations with Pearl.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't.
Hey everybody, so I'm so excited. We have something new today that we're doing. We are doing an in-person interview with our podcast guest on Conversations with Pearl. So I'm excited to have you meet my dear friend, Gabriella McColeman, but she's got some great things. She's an amazing, amazing person. And I'm going to share some information about her as well with you. But today you're on Conversations with Pearl. We're doing it in person in my house. We're sitting in
I
comfy
surprised
chairs.
her this morning.
She did. She's like, can we meet up? I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
She didn't know I was already downstairs waiting for her to
She was
open the front door.
outside my door, you guys. It was so cool. So I'm so excited to have Gabriella here today. Gabriella McColeman, she specializes in mortgage. She's a mortgage loan officer. She's a certified divorce lending professional, which I love that part of what she does. She specializes in helping self-employed borrowers obtain that dream of home ownership. She is one of only 5 mortgage officers in the state of Florida that is also a certified divorce lending professional. So, for all you divorced women, you need to get your pen and paper out today because we got some great things we're going to share with you. But this gives her the unique insight into helping individuals navigate their options through divorce. She also is bilingual, which is so, so important. And Gabriella was previously a bank VP. That's when I met her. So for over 20 years, we met when she was a bank VP, where she specialized in turning underperforming bank branches into profitable multi-million-dollar entities. And she's got a great knack for that. But here's the thing. In her spare time, she loves to attend wine events, read books, introducing friends to new restaurants. She's got a knack for finding. I put the one she did last week, the Italian restaurant, on my list. She has great weekend adventures with her husband and their 6-year-old son, Aidan. And she believes in truly.
Well, he's 9 almost next month.
Is he 9? Oh my God, take that back. 9 years old. Wow. Time flies. Oh my gosh. But she definitely believes in savoring the moment and packing as much into life as she can. She is a self-proclaimed internal optimist. Her favorite quote is, optimists enrich the present, enhance the future, challenge the improbable, and attain the impossible. So I'm so excited to have you on today with us, Gabriella.
I'm excited.
And it's going to be a great 40 minutes approximately we're going to be together. So you guys, like I said, get your pen and paper out because we're going to have a lot of fun. But first I want to dive into a little bit about you. Okay. Tell us about your growing up. Like, what was life like growing up?
So my dad was a farmer. So it was definitely about getting dirty, going out to the farm, being out all day because you had to contribute, as well.
Right.
So we didn't know any different than working.
Right.
So I definitely think our work ethic, transpired from that. The second part to that, though, is that volunteer work was a big part.
Big part of the community, right?
Very big part. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I remember my mom had me at the South Shore Hospital and I was a candy striper.
Oh, candy stripers.
Yeah, we
haven't heard that in a long time.
I know, right? Now they are more official.
Right.
They're like hospital volunteers.
Right.
But back then we actually wore the blue and white candy striper uniform.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And I would go in and I would, serve people who were going to be in the hospital more than a day. I'd serve them their food. Then I went into their x-ray department. So those were the 2 strongest parts of my upbringing, being on the farm and doing volunteer work.
So that strikes home for me a lot. So I grew up where my dad, same thing. I was the oldest. So, my brother was 7 years younger than I am. So I was one who helped do the yard work. I remember I hated this, you guys, laying sod in our huge, I think we had like an acre of land. I had to go out and help my dad lay sod. I was not a happy girl. So when I met my husband, we needed to have sod in our backyard in our house we had in California. So we got to lay sod. I'm like, find somebody else to do it. I ain't doing it. No, not doing it, not touching it. I'm done with that stuff. So
Well, I would say the good thing about being a farmer's daughter is that I pretty much love every vegetable.
oh, that's important. Yeah. We didn't have vegetables. It was just green grass. So I don't have a brown thumb. I actually just gave a plant to my son, Nate, his girlfriend. I'm like, can you save this plant? It's a weeping willow. And one of my Chuck's agents gave it to us. And I was like, I don't want to kill it. And it's a weeping willow gardenia. I'm like, so I don't know if it's supposed to look pitiful or if I'm making it look pitiful.
Oh, it sounds too complicated for me.
Me too. So tell us, like, through your career, like what brought you into the world of like the banking and then finance? What excited you about that?
So I was starting college. I started at HCC right here locally in Brandon. And I didn't really know initially what I wanted to do. But my mom said, well, you need a job, right? You can go to college, but we need you to have a job at the same time.
Right.
So at the time, she was working for Dr. Isabel. He was a longtime dentist in the area, and he happened to be on the board. He says, well, there's a part-time teller position at SunTrust Bank. So he got me that position. It was a great experience, and that started my banking career. So I went from being a teller, then moving on to a credit union, eventually becoming a loan officer, but more for unsecured loans, boat loans. But the biggest thing I liked about that is that I did subprime lending. So it meant,
I remember those days.
Yeah. So it meant that I wasn't necessarily always working with individuals that had perfect credit, right? If you have perfect credit, great. But everyone has a life. Everyone has a story, right? And so my job was to talk to the client, figure out what was the story, because 9 times out of 10, people don't stop paying their bills because they want to stop paying their bills.
Right.
There's usually some life event that occurs that sometimes blemishes their credit.
Right.
My job was to put that story into a short little paragraph, submit it to the underwriting team and say, this is why I think they should be given a second chance to have
and I remember those days. So many of you know, I also did mortgages. I started out doing the processing. So I would take some of the pre-underwritten subprime stuff. And I mean, tell me if you find this true today, but when I would get a client go, I need this bank statement, I need that information. They're like, why do you need all that? And the easiest way I could explain it to my clients was like, listen, unlike when you get arrested, you're innocent till you're proven guilty. In the world of mortgages, you're guilty till I prove you innocent. So I have to prove that you make this money. I have to prove that you're not getting money from these large deposits from, selling or whatever you're doing outside there. That's not the right thing to do. So I love that.
Yeah. So once I got out of that, I was tapped to do some bank branch management. So I wound up doing that for a good 10 years. And then I decided I don't want to manage people anymore. I want to just be responsible for myself, help the clients the way I like to help them, right? So in the banking world, it's it's very different than it was 20 years ago when I started. And the way banking was changing, it no longer aligned with how I wanted to support my clients. So I decided on a whim that I've had enough of banking. I left banking. My husband had left his banking job 6 months prior. 6 months after that, I left. And here we were, 2 former executives of banks who got a W-2 salary every 2 weeks we are 100% commission-based only.
Oh my gosh. It's a totally different world too.
Totally different world.
Because now you're relying on yourself.
You're relying on yourself.
You're relying on yourself.
But I would say the best thing that came out of my banking days is they taught you that you should always have a schedule. You should always have a pipeline of individuals that you're talking to. Right. And ultimately, if you're there to help them, you're going to get to where you need to be. So that was kind of my thing. I never worried about, are we going to make it? Right. And so I always like to tell my story that when my husband and I got a banking, we decided to take $10,000 out of our retirement account. And we said, okay, we have $10,000 that included paying our bills for the month and the marketing for this new business venture we were doing, and said to ourselves, we have all these past former banking relationships. So we're going to make a go of it. And if the 10,000 runs out, well, guess what? I guess we're going back to banking.
And how many years ago was that?
So that was about 8 years ago now.
And so now tell everybody, so your husband is Cass.
Yes.
And so Cass does what part of the business?
Yes. So Cass is the realtor. So he handles residential and commercial and business brokerage. And then my part of the McColeman team is the mortgage side. So he helps you find the home. I help you find financing for the home.
And so I love that that's a great combination, because you're a mortgage broker and your your mortgage broker and your real estate agent, you work so closely together,
Yes.
right? So let's talk about that a second. So we're having some interesting conversations. We won't go there today, but so tell us, like, how do you navigate that? And then also throw in there, you also have our wonderful 9-year-old Aidan. Like, so how do you, we talk a lot here about self-care and about balance and boundaries. So how did you and Cass figure that piece out? Like, it probably wasn't an overnight thing. Like,
definitely not an overnight thing.
Yeah. So how did you guys create that boundary and that balance?
So definitely a loaded question. So I would say year one is the toughest. Right. But I would say that's the same thing of anytime you're newly married, anytime you have a new puppy in your life, anytime you have a new baby in your life, right? But if you know you're with the right person, the person you're meant to be with, you figure it out.
Right.
Year one, not going to lie, definitely lots of yelling. And then I just drew a boundary by saying, as a realtor, would you speak to another mortgage loan officer the way you are speaking to me now?
Great
right?
job.
And not going to lie, there were probably a few hang up calls, but we figured it out, right? And it was vice versa as well. So I was not used to my husband being away in the evenings, right? In the banking world, 8 to 5, he was home, it was family time, to now shifting of clients need realtors the most in the evenings and the weekends.
Correct.
So I had to definitely bend, and I do not bend easily, but he's my person, right? So I had to figure it out. So that's how we kind of navigated through that. And then on top of that, when we started our business, the reason ultimately why we wanted to get out of banking is because we have our now almost 9-year-old son, Aidan. And I didn't want to have to pick and choose which of his events I wanted to go to.
Right.
So when you're in any profession, you have to go by the vacation schedule of everyone else in the office.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So if Sally had, some vacation, then that meant for Gabriella, I couldn't go to my son's honor roll ceremony.
Correct. Right.
So I didn't want to give up what I felt at this point in my life was important.
Absolutely.
So here we are. Next year, my husband and I will be married 10 years.
That's awesome. Yay.
Our business has been phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And, I'm just blessed.
So talk about the boundaries. And I love too that you said, because in the 9 to 5 world, if we're tied to that W-2 or whatever that is, you're right. You can't go because Sally's already got it booked on there. So now you've got this flexibility in your schedule. And I totally get what you say about the whole, the night and the weekend thing. Too, at mortgages, the same thing happens. I mean, I remember years ago when I did mortgages, I remember being on vacation, actually here in Florida. We're at Disney World with our kids. And I had an agent who she was best to work with between 5 and 9 a.m. because the things that she did in her life wasn't very conducive to real estate. So she would page me. This is before, we got these great cell phones. So she would page me and I'd have to take the call. And so it was hard because my family, for them to understand, we had 2 little ones, and my husband worked for the government. So he's like, why do you got to have that on? It's like, so not an understanding. But I love a couple of things that you guys do. So I love that you make sure you take time for your family.
Definitely.
I also love that you're very good. And I know you've come to our retreat last year and we talk about, taking time for yourself, doing something for yourself without that guilt of, you're leaving a son behind, you're leaving a husband behind, right?
Definitely.
So, but you guys also do it combined. So how does that, take us into that world of, you do events for your clients as well. So you include those self-care into your clients, which I think is powerful. So walk us through, how did that come about and how do you orchestrate all that?
Okay. So I would say my husband and I are together 95% of the time. And we do it because honestly, we truly enjoy each other's company. I wish all marriages, could say that.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we started out, we were trying to figure out a way of how to give back the support to our clients, right? Because obviously, like in any industry, we rely on, our clients to send, us referrals. We don't do any type of advertising.
Right.
And we're figuring right now, especially, people don't take time for themselves to do things outside of being with their children.
Correct.
Right. So my husband and I have our time, then we have our time with our son. but a lot of clients are tend to be just very family centric and don't take time with their spouses.
Right.
So we created the McColeman team events. We didn't know necessarily what we were creating at the time. I just remember my husband saying, "Oh, we should do a beach event." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But his idea of a beach event was some picnic tables out in the middle of the Florida 95-degree weather.
Oh, so hot.
And I had a completely different version of what that beach event looks like. So fast forward 3 to 4 years, we've had now that beach event. Every year we posted it out in Longboat Key at Zoda Beach Resort. And now, you know, it's, wow, not only do you get the beach, you have the infinity pool. You know, we have a hula hoop contest. We like to do the conga line around the pool. You know, we like this past month, we did the piñata and we filled it with things that adults would love.
Right.
But it's just their way for them and their plus one, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. So if their plus one and their favorite person happens to be their kid, they're bringing their kid.
Right.
But it's just a way for them to get away for the day.
And I think that's so powerful. You know, we talk about in businesses about ways to give back to the community, right? I mean, those of you who haven't heard yet, you know, I lost my son almost 3 weeks ago. And, you know, I give to my community and like Gabriella and Cass, I give it because I want to, because, you know, I get so much from my community. I always want to give back. And, you know, it's so important to have that connection with your community. And like you said, you're paying it forward to like, to showing families that, hey, yes, we're busy with our career and everything, but we take that time out and to pay it forward and show others how to do it, right? It's so important. And so I want to ask you this. What's your favorite thing, just you, that you love to do for self-care? What's your favorite thing?
So
I'm going to ask you, other than a bubble bath.
Yeah, no.
So outside bubble bath.
I'm not a bubble bath person, but I am an avid book reader. Yes. And so I created a book club called Literary Ladies. And that is my opportunity to hang out with ladies who have similar interests. Right. As a group, we decide what book we're going to read. And then we take it a step further, and whatever genre that book is, we try and match up a matching restaurant to go with it. It's so much fun. Then it's a experience every month, and you really look forward to that. So book reading for sure. That's awesome. Definitely my favorite. I know that I've not, my schedule has been so crazy.
She's invited every month. Every month, but not every time she's going to last one, unfortunately. But
and I still put her on the guest list.
She does.
She's going to make it one
I'm
month.
going to. And it's so much fun because like you said, you incorporate the genre of what's happening in the book and everything. But what's really neat too, I think, is that you're allowing other women or those that are involved to take that time and do some reading or listen to it on the book, whatever that is, like truly finding that inner peace and something to do for themselves. It's so important. So tell us about this divorce, the part of the divorce licensing. Walk us through what that looks like and why did you decide to do that?
So that's probably the easiest one to answer. So I personally went through a divorce about 11, 12 years ago. Okay. And I remember during that divorce, there's a range of emotions that you're going through, right? You're trying to figure out not only what's going to happen with your house, but, you know, everything else that goes along with it. And for me, even though I was in the banking industry, I was not a specialist in mortgage. So I did not know anything about what my options were. All I knew was, okay, I was going through a divorce. I had a lot of questions. Where do I go from here? Right. Looking back at it, did I necessarily know all of my options? I don't think I did. Right. So then I said, well, that makes sense. You know, it's something I can relate to. It's something that unfortunately the divorce rate is extremely, you know, high, especially in the first 5 years of marriage. Over 60% of marriages fail. And if you're a veteran, that statistic goes up even higher. Beyond that.
I can imagine.
So so when I found this opportunity to get this licensing, I just couldn't believe that there were not more mortgage loan officers who wanted this additional specialty. Because what we have to do is it's a team effort, right? So it not only involves me and my client, but at times it involves their accountant. It involves just having discussions with your family law attorney and potentially your financial advisor as well, because we really want to get a clear picture of what's going on in your life and see how you can come out better at the end of your divorce.
Right.
Because I always like to say divorce shouldn't be a dirty word.
Right.
It can be your ticket to freedom.
Exactly. And for many women it is. And for many women it is. So there are many women. And if you're one of those that are listening out there right now that can resonate with what I'm going to share, many women feel like they're stuck in this marriage because they're fearful. They don't know, oh my God, what's going to happen with the house? You know, how's the financial stuff going to look? They're so scared of those steps. So having somebody like you, and it just blows my mind too, that there's only, you know, so few that offer this because like you said, the numbers are so high. And I mean, I grew up in, you know, as a military brat and we saw a lot of that around us. So you're right. So that why there's not more offering this. And so I love that you're actually a female that's doing it too. I think that's so powerful. But so tell us, like, since you've been doing this, what have you seen the impact been?
Yeah. So one of the things I want to stress is making sure women or men understand that you don't actually have to wait for the act of divorce to happen to have these conversations with a mortgage professional.
Good point. Let's
say this is something a year, you know, out that you're just saying, having these emotions of, I'm not sure if this is the marriage I'm supposed to be in, but you just want options. I highly recommend you start those conversations with a mortgage professional early. And then that way you can truly make the decision and go on the path of what you feel is best for them. But it's pretty powerful to be able to help and support and educate. I would say educate is the biggest, you know, part. And it makes you feel the way I wanted to feel 11, 12 years ago. You know, I wish I knew what my options were. So just being here, that's enough for me.
And I think that's so powerful too, because many people feel like they're trapped when they're going to go through a divorce. And especially if you're that what I call the CEO mom or CEO dad that's been running the house while the spouse is out working, you feel like I'm not owed anything, I'm talking with a client right now, and she's many years married, and she's like, I don't know what I get. I go, well, you know, you're going to get alimony. There's going to be something there. So, and I share with her, I'm like, you need to sit down with Gabriella and let her walk you through. These are some of the things that you need to get in order. These are some of the things you can look for, you know, possibly able to help you with all that. So,
and I like to partner with family law attorneys because, believe it or not, family law attorneys are great at what they do. Their specialty is not mortgages, Their specialty is helping you navigate how you're going to come out, you know, at the end. But that's why it's important for me to be a piece of that puzzle, instead of allowing that to be an afterthought. Your divorce is done. Okay, the divorce supposedly says you get the home, but did anyone bother to take a step further and figure out, how am I going to finance that home? Am I going to be the one staying in that home? Am I going to be the one refinancing that home? If not, am I going to be eligible for a new home? So just because it's in your divorce decree and it says the home is awarded to you, you have to be able to somehow show that you're able to manage that payment.
Because you know, especially if you're somebody who was the CEO mom and you know, now you've got the home, it's like, hey, you got to, you know, most of the divorce decrees say you have to refinance it out into your name. And it's a whole new realm of understanding.
Yeah, because you're going from, typically you're basing that mortgage payment on 2 salaries. And in a perfect world, great. Now you're going from 2 salaries to one salary. Does that make sense for you to stay in that home? And let's say if you guys decide as a couple that no one's keeping the home, how do you decide what that home is valued at? Some people think there's one type of appraisal. There's actually 4 different type of appraisals based on what your intention is with that home. So that's an important element as well.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I remember when my parents divorced years ago, you know, Chuck and I went out, helped my mom get the house in order and all this stuff. And my dad could have one more walk through and it was funny. It's like, you know, you have to get all these things to pack, I had all these crates and they were in the kitchen. He's like, well, those are mine. I'm like, dude, no, let's just talk a minute here. And the whole praise value and everything that came up a lot. They ended up selling it and splitting it, whatever. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I'll give you a real life example. So there is a client who a couple of years ago said, oh, well, we don't have any equity in our home, so I'm just going to go ahead and allow her to keep the house. So think about this. That house back then probably was valued at about $250,000. Their mortgage probably was equal to that amount.
Gotcha.
So in a normal person's world, that makes sense.
Right.
She's going to keep the mortgage. Home is valued at that amount. Okay. Flash forward, what's going on right now?
Right.
The values of homes have skyrocketed.
Right.
That same $250,000 home from a year or two ago is now valued at close to, let's say, $450,000.
A lot of difference.
It's a big difference. So you really want to think about what the potential future value of that home could be, because the mortgage market is highly based on the world events that are the global events that are happening.
Yeah. And that's, you're right. We've had a huge increase in changes. That's so powerful. So if you're interested, learning more about this, we're going to have Gabriella's information on the podcast on YouTube. So we'll be able to reach out to her. But you also work with veterans, right? So tell us a little bit about what you do with the veterans and how that looks.
Yeah. So part of my banking history was working for MacDill Federal Credit Union. So I worked literally right outside the Air Force Base, and I sat day in and day out with wives of military personnel. And it didn't surprise me, unfortunately, of the statistics that, veterans, especially combat veterans, have a higher, like 3 to 4 times higher divorce rate than a civilian person. So when I would hear the spouses of military, personnel talking about their, marital issues, it didn't surprise me, when I heard that statistic. But that's kind of where my love for military and veterans came from, just because I was so close to them. And what's really important is that you have a loan officer that understands what that looks like. Because the very first thing they should be looking at is your certificate of eligibility.
Correct.
There's a lot of different ways that you can potentially be eligible. Some people think that, let's say, if they've only been in the military 6 years, that would not make them eligible. They have this misconception that, I have to retire to become eligible for that. Not the case. Even if you're in the reserves, that could potentially make you, eligible for it. So I always, one of my defining questions when I'm going through a loan application is, have you ever been in the military? Right. So instead of asking, do you have any military benefits? Right. The question is stated differently purposely, because I really just want to know, have you ever been in the military? Because then I can automatically pull a certificate of eligibility. And within a day, you're going to know if you have the potential to get a VA loan. The reason that's so important is because there is a specific product, the VA mortgage, that allows you to come to the table with 0 down payment. That's huge. Because most other people have to come up with a minimum of 3.5%, for a home. So that's a significant savings. But even beyond that, you don't pay mortgage insurance. And the last piece of that is, if you have any disability tied to being a veteran, you could potentially be getting discounted or no property taxes on that home. So, I mean, the benefits for a VA mortgage, I can go on all day long about it. But, it's not your job as a, former military, active military veteran to know. That's my job.
Exactly. And I love that you talk about, so we're going to do a little shift here. So with the VA loan, it's kind of like, we know why there's 0% down. It's a benefit. But let's talk about, you and I were talking, and you sent me, this is one of your questions that we were going to discuss today. People think, 0 down is free money, right? I remember doing mortgages. But they're giving me the money. No, nothing is free in this world. Let's say it again. Nothing is free in this world. Like the veterans, they've put in their time, so talk to us about these programs that are 0 down and the misconception around, it's free money.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes. So from time to time, I will have clients and they're asking me, do you have any, assisted, with down payment assistance. And I said, well, we do. I will be honest, down payment assistance is not my specialty. I do have lenders that do offer that. But like Pearl said, no money is ever free money, right? So a lot of these programs will typically be forgiven for after you've been in the home for about 5 years, but you're paying for that free money in the long term. And how do you do that? They basically bump up your mortgage rate. So that's how they make up the money that they supposedly gave you for free. So what I always tell people is, if it's a possibility that you can, maybe if it means not getting into a home this year, 6 months from now, a year from now, get that savings, get that nest egg in place.
Right.
Sometimes I will encourage them to do that versus having a higher interest rate, therein having a direct impact on what you're paying on the monthly payment,
Right.
for your mortgage.
I just had this conversation with our son, Nate, because he is, he's paying too much for rent. I won't even discuss how much he's paying. And he's like, I didn't want to buy anything, A, because he didn't have the money to put down.
Right.
But B, he's recognizing I'm paying too much for rent, Mom. So he's talking about, okay, I'm starting to look. I'm like, okay, I've got you some resources,
Right.
and because I used to do it too. I'm like, okay, you need to look at these, check your credit score,
Right.
that kind of stuff. So it's really, really important everybody understands that if that's a path you want to go to, get with Gabriella, because she's going to walk you through the steps you need to do to prepare for that purchase. And
Right.
it's a big purchase. It's not like, although these days cars seems like they're almost as much as a small condo anymore, but you need to have that game plan. You need to have that set up and everything as well.
And don't feel that you have to say, oh, I can't talk to a mortgage loan officer right now because I'm really not going to buy for another year.
Right.
That is the perfect time to begin talking to a mortgage loan officer.
Yes.
Because, whether it be you want to have your savings in place, or it could be, do I even know what my credit score is right now?
Right.
If you don't, that's a perfect way to start the process of, let's see where your credit is now.
Yep.
Are there any potential challenges of me getting a mortgage?
Right.
And if there is, then you have time.
Right.
Instead of waiting for your lease on your apartment to be up in 2 months.
Right.
And now you're in a difficult position.
Yeah, because Nate's been in this place, I think, July. So he's like, I'm starting to look now, like, this is the perfect time. You've gotten settled in, your money situation, you know where your money's coming and going. And so it's so important. So this has been so much fun, this conversation. And so I want to know, what's upcoming for you? What's the next thing that you guys are working on and what's coming down the pipeline for you?
So much. So I mentioned earlier, part of what my husband does is he does commercial real estate. So that's up and coming for myself personally, is being able to have lending options on the commercial side.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very, very cool. That's exciting. I love that. That's so cool. Okay. So we're going to switch gears for a second. So everybody knows here, if you've been watching the podcast, we talk about our annual pajama retreat, and we have the next one. Our 6th annual pajama retreat is coming up in September, the 15th to the 19th. And Gabriella attended last year. She's not able to attend this year because of schedule conflicts, but she attended last year, and really she was a last minute the night before. I think she almost beat out. There's one other person who attended the second year we did. She was 2 hours with us starting. She started, but I think you were within 8 hours of us starting the retreat. So tell us what led you to come. And the other thing I loved about her coming too was she saw this as a great thing to do for her self-care. And she literally left her husband within 8 hours, home with the 8-year-old at the time, but home with Aidan. And she said, I'm going to go do this. So tell everybody, what made you decide to come and why you did it and why somebody should attend the retreat.
So I think I am a slave to my calendar sometimes. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. Right. I also think that as women, we tend to take more and more on. Right. That's just naturally who I are.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, stay tuned, because in the future, I do want to write, a book. I'd like to come back as a husband in my next life.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
I love that. Save that title.
Yes.
Trademark that title.
So, but the reason I wanted to go to that retreat is I basically called my husband out on a bluff. Bluff? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I was at a Kiwanis event with my friend Georgie, and Georgie's like, Cass, why aren't you let Gabriella go into the retreat? And he's like, she can go. I'm not stopping her. And I said, okay. So that was about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, at night.
At night. And Georgie said, okay, I'll pick you up at 3 a.m. And we drove from Florida to Tennessee.
Yep.
So that's really why I did it. It was just I wanted to make sure I took time to myself. I wanted to make sure that my husband understood that I trusted him, that things were going to flow just as easily in the household, whether I was there or not. I have a very big control issue, right? So it was hard for me to let go.
Right.
And not only that, but I think there's this thing about being around a group of women. For some women, it's a great thing.
Right.
For me, it gives me anxiety. I don't know where that comes from. It gives me anxiety. Then you put me in a house with a group of women and I'm like, oh my gosh, it just gives me anxiety. But I mean, the women were fantastic.
Yeah. It was a great
all of this anxiety I was having, it pretty much went away.
Right. Yeah. And so the other thing was at our retreats, it's no makeup and you're in your PJs the whole weekend.
But she did let me wear my lipstick.
But Gabrielle was like, can I at least wear lipstick? I'm like, I'll let you wear lipstick. So yeah. So our retreat coming up this year, it's our, a year ago, Gabrielle was part of the team that helped me come up with a theme, experience your journey of possibilities. And those of you who haven't seen our podcast, this is our first podcast on in about 3 weeks that we'll be putting out, where I lost my son 3 weeks ago in a tragic automobile accident. And, that whole theme means something totally different to me now, because literally your journey of possibilities could end in the next minute, right? And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but you don't know what's coming. So what are you doing today to really seize the moment? Like Gabrielle is doing these great things with divorce for women with divorce, because that's a huge change in your life. And, our veterans and supporting all that, those are big changes, but also recognizing that what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for your self-growth? What are you doing to achieve your goals, your visions? And also the question is, and this is going to be a very powerful retreat coming up next month, is we're really going to delve in. We're going to do this chart that's going to tell you how many years you estimate have left in your life. I did mine. Mine says I have 23 years estimated left in my life. 23 years is not bad. That's 2 rounds of high school. I looked at it that way.
Really fast.
But it goes quick, right? So what am I doing with those 23 years that are estimates? Not guaranteed I'm going to have those 23 years. So what are you doing today to live for today to achieve what you want to? And the other part of that we're going to do at this retreat is really delve into, if your world ended today and all your family and friends could say at your eulogy was literally what they saw you do for yourself, what are they going to say? Like, that's powerful. And the really cool thing for me, and Gabrielle and I talked about this before we came on, was that my oldest son, Matthew, would look at me like, you no matter what's thrown at you, you see the cup half full. And I used to say, I see it overflowing, right? And, right now it's kind of hard to make it overflow, but I'm making the joy stir from the bottom and bringing it up. And so the cool thing with him is I didn't know how much he followed my example until his friends would come and they were telling me, we saw Matt, support us. He came to this, he did this for us. And he always listened no matter what was happening in his world. He had that listening ear. And so I'm asking you today, if you can answer this question, what would your family and friends say about at your eulogy? It's really, really important for those that are listening to really take that question to heart. And if you don't know, and if you want to come to the retreat, it's September 15th to the 19th. Everything is included in your price except for your transportation there and Sunday lunch out, because we believe in going into the community and pouring into the community that we're receiving from. So you just go to wslivingretreats.com. That's wslivingretreats.com. And you can grab your spot today. We have sponsorships available as well. So I just want to thank Gabriella for coming on today. Absolutely. It's been great having her.
She left me with a good inspiration, because in the 5 minutes that we were discussing her son, Matt, I shared with Pearl, that I'm always thinking of, what if this happens to my husband? What if this happens to my son? What if there's an accident? But in talking with her in that 5 minutes, she has now managed to alleviate some of that anxiety I always have.
Right.
Because now in talking to her, I know that even if something happens, it's still going to be okay.
Yeah, it's still going to be okay. I mean, I was chatting with Gabriella. The hardest part is going to bed at night, because it's that emptiness of, not having him here, but it's still okay. I'm still going to wake up tomorrow like I'm supposed to. And if God says I'm not supposed to, then that's up to him. Yep. But no matter what, life has to go on. And, our loved ones don't want us to stay here behind and be depressed. Yes, we're going to miss them and all of that stuff. But they're listening. We can talk to him. I've cursed him out a few times. I've told him I loved him a few times.
Maybe you could take your Pearl with you.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. So listen, you guys. So I usually close out the show holding, my hands. If you watch this show, I always go like this, you're at this Pearl. So I want to tell you that Gabriella has brought me the physical Pearl here today. So as I usually close out the show, I say to everybody, you come into this world as this amazing oyster. You're a little rough on the outside, but as you open it up, you find this beautiful Pearl. And it can't quite see with the lighting, but there you go. I want you guys all to go out and find your inner Pearl of greatness and have an amazing day.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of lost my fire.